Okay, let's just dive right in, because today we are connecting two worlds that you would never, ever expect to hear in the same sentence. We're talking about paranormal investigators and the cast of Saturday Night Live. Yeah, I know it sounds a little wild, but trust me, the lessons one holds for the other are, well, they're surprisingly profound.
So you're probably asking, where on earth does a comparison like this even come from? Well, our story kicks off in a place you might expect to find spirits, but maybe not so many comedy writers: a seance. A medium was channeling a group of, let's call them ethereal beings, when they suddenly just stopped, seemed confused, and asked the room what was going on.
And this is where it all clicks. The people in the room explained that they were all just having a good laugh. The spirit's reply was just fascinating. They said that from their perspective, our laughter literally looks like bright flashes of light. How cool is that? It's this beautiful, totally unexpected bridge between the spiritual and the comical that really sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. So this brings us to the big question, right? On the surface, it seems absurd. I mean, one group is trying to communicate with the afterlife, and the other is trying to get a laugh with sketches about, I don't know, cowbells. But as we're about to see, the history of SNL is basically a masterclass in group dynamics, in survival, and in mission focus that, honestly, any organization could learn from. Okay, so let's properly introduce our two main players here. In one corner, you have a television institution that has shaped pop culture for almost half a century. And in the other corner, you've got this dedicated group of researchers using technology to try and peek behind the curtain of reality. First up, Saturday Night Live. Launched way back in 1974 to fill a programming gap for NBC, its mission was, and still is, crystal clear and very, very down to earth. Entertain a massive audience, sell that ad space, and make a profit. Simple enough, right? And then we've got our paranormal researchers, INIT, which stands for the International Network for Instrumental Transcommunication. They were founded in 1995, and their mission was, well, let's just say a little more out there, but no less ambitious. They wanted to use technology, things like special radios and computers, to create a stable two-way connection with spirit realms. And their goal wasn't just to talk. It was to share what they learned with the whole world. A really noble goal, but as we're going to see, an incredibly tough one. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. This is the unexpected parallel. Despite their totally different missions, both the original SNL and the INIT group had what you'd call a golden age, a period of incredible creativity and breakthroughs that lasted for almost the exact same amount of time, about 4 to 5 years. For SNL, this was their explosive start. For INIT, it was a time of clear, verifiable contact. And the reasons why both of those golden ages ended, well, that's where the real story is. All right, let's get to the heart of this comparison, because at the core of both SNL's success and its failures, you find this classic conflict, this push and pull between two fundamental types of people. To really get it, we can look at two of the big 5 personality traits. So on one hand, you have openness. These are your innovators, the people who love new ideas, they push boundaries. Let's call them the creatives. And on the other hand, you've got conscientiousness. These are your dependable, organized people who make sure the trains run on time. We'll call them the planners. Any successful group needs both. It just has to. And you couldn't ask for better poster boys for these two types than the two men who brought SNL to life. You've got Lorne Michaels, the visionary producer, the ultimate creative, and then you have Dick Eppersol, the savvy network exec who knew how to make it all work for NBC. He's the classic planner. And in the beginning, under Michael's leadership, that creative spirit just ran totally wild. The vibe was famously loose. The offices had, let's just say, a very distinct aroma. Cast members would get into it with network guests. It was pure, unfiltered, creative chaos. And it was fueled by a cast of geniuses, like Belushi and Radner, who were pretty much all creatives. But even in that creative whirlwind, there was a really crucial anchor. Cast member Jane Curtin was the big exception. Her colleagues described her as steady and sensible. She brought a much-needed dose of that planner personality. She famously wasn't a fan of the drug culture and just brought a sense of stability to the beautiful madness. So for a while, that delicate balance worked. But what happens when the main creative force, that primary creative visionary, suddenly just walks away? What's left to hold the whole thing together? For SNL, the answer was complete chaos. In 1980, Lorne Michaels left the show and almost the entire original cast and writing staff left with him. The next season, under a new producer, was a legendary train wreck. It wasn't until the pragmatic co-founder Dick Ebersol took over that the ship started to steady itself, which eventually led to Michaels coming back. And the consequences of Michaels leaving were immediate, and they were brutal. NBC saw that the creative core was gone, and they slashed the show's budget by 2/3. With a new cast and basically no money, the show just tanked. It hit its worst ratings ever. It was a really stark lesson in how fast an organization can just fall apart without its leader. So when Dick Ebersol, the planner, stepped in, he didn't try to recreate the old magic. No, he implemented a structured, super pragmatic rescue plan. He hired established stars like Billy Crystal, who already had polished material, and he built the show around reliable, recurring characters audiences already knew and loved, like Eddie Murphy's Gumby. It was structure over chaos. And you know what? It worked. And here is the huge takeaway. SNL's near-death experience showed that just having pure creative energy isn't enough to survive in the long run. An organization, any organization, needs a solid framework that can outlast any single person. And this was the exact lesson the paranormal group INI so desperately needed. Just like SNL, their success was driven by a few visionary members. But when egos got in the way and key people left, there was no stable structure left to keep the project afloat. The whole thing just fractured, and their amazing work just stopped. So after all the chaos, the terrible ratings, the triumphant comebacks, what's the ultimate lesson here? What's the secret sauce that has allowed Saturday Night Live to keep going for decade after decade? Well, the show's incredible longevity wasn't just because of Lorne Michaels' genius as a creative, and it wasn't just because of Dick Ebersol's savvy as a planner. It was the powerful and often tense combination of both. It was that essential balance between the visionary and the pragmatist that let the show not just survive its crises, but actually thrive for decades. And you know what? These lessons are universal. It doesn't matter if you're producing a comedy show or trying to communicate with the other side. The principles are exactly the same. Always stay focused on your mission. Find that crucial balance between innovation and organization. And build a system that's bigger than any one person, so that people can come and go without the whole thing collapsing. At the end of the day, it really all boils down to this. The key is finding that perfect equilibrium between those freewheeling creative forces and the stabilizing conscientious ones. That balance is what lets a group get through the personality clashes and the ego battles and stay focused on the real reason they all came together in the first place. And that leaves us with one final thought. If a team of paranormal researchers can learn vital survival tips from the wild history of a comedy show, it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other profound, totally unexpected lessons are just waiting for us in the stories all around us?